whose
Hi,
fan club is that?
everybody. Welcome to the Starseeds and Lightworkers podcast here on Quantum Portals. My name is Crystal, and I am so glad that you're here with us tonight. Tonight, we are going to be looking at a very, very interesting topic. Usually, when we talk about UFOs or aliens or anything to do with any kind of contact or any kind of experiencer, we usually just look at it from just the experiencer and the elusive craft, and that's it. And tonight we are going to be taking a very, very different approach. We're going to be looking at it from, let's say, the C-SETI perspective. And for those of you who are familiar with the work of Dr. Stephen Greer, he basically in his work dealing with the extraterrestrial, his work with extraterrestrials and with UFO research, he developed a system where he was able to contact different alien groups. And he has spent the last, I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I think he spent the last 10 or 20 years sharing that knowledge with people who are interested in having a direct approach and in particular a spiritual approach. I think that right now, when you look at something like MUFON, and again, no shade towards MUFON, but everybody sort of approaches it very differently. People look at it from more of a nuts and bolts perspective. I feel that the recent hearings that we've been having at Capitol Hill in the United States, they've been looking at it from a more militaristic, in my opinion, more militaristic, more sort of again technological perspective, and how this contact with different beings who allegedly, according to them, might be a bit of a threat to the American public or the public at large, is coming from that perspective. So it's coming from a more sort of like militaristic and sort of like, invasion, sort of invasion USA type of kind of thing. But Dr. Greer has looked at it more from how do we connect with these different beings. And for the most part, if these beings really did have a very, very nefarious or negative approach, they would have wiped out the planet a long time ago. So again, people have different perspectives, but I think that it's interesting that we can take a look at that tonight and discuss the different perspectives, because we have Mr. Shane Hurd, who was also a New York MUFON investigator, and he spent nearly 25 years in a government career in the field of civil engineering and geographic information systems, information technologies, and is a graduate at Arizona State University and a certified public manager program. And and you were there for the Phoenix Lights, I think, right, Shane? I think you were
Mhm.
there, yeah. And and he studied intently, and ultimately in 2015 joined MUFON, and then became a MUFON field investigator in 2017, and he is now a star member, a field investigator, trainer, and a member of the Experiencer Resource Team, and is an assistant state director of Arizona MUFON. And in June 2020, he published his first book entitled Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, a beginner's guide to researching UFOs. So he came on the show last year. It's gone so fast. It's gone
Can't
so
believe
fast. Like,
it's
where did it
that.
go? And
Uh,
he came and he spoke to us about his book and some of the work that he was doing. And so we were able to talk about that. So we looked at it from a more, I guess, MUFON perspective, and that's fine because we had an introduction to Shane, and I was saying to Shane when we met him last time, I said one of many shows he'll be doing with us. I swear.
yeah,
And
yeah, for
he
sure.
has and he has brought a friend and partner of his, Mr. Josh Rutledge. And Josh is a researcher, a channeler, and a professional intuitive guide. He's an experiencer and a MUFON field investigator. And Josh is known to audiences of Spaced Out Radio. So he has his own podcast. And so, you should check that out. And the UFO Woo Wizard, for a riveting exploration of his lifelong encounters with the paranormal and the patterns that tie them together. And drawing on his eidetic memory and uncanny ability to connect subtle details across cases, Josh reveals how UFOs, poltergeist activity, and psychic events Cryptids and high strangeness encounter don't merely coexist; they often trigger and amplify and bleed into one another. So he's the full package, as it were, and he's going to be joining us tonight. So we're going to have a sort of a table ronde. We're going to have a big roundtable of different perspectives, and we're going to be looking at the C-SETI approach to working with UFOs and contacting different beings. So, Josh, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well.
Okay.
Thank you again for the invitation. I'm really looking forward to being here tonight, just to share some of the things that I've seen and captured and really just be a part of the conversation. So, again, thank you.
Okay, no problem. So, I guess we'll just start we'll start with Shane, and then we'll sort of go back and forth, and then we can sort of make our way through. So, Shane, when we last spoke with you, you were talking about SETI and how you were doing it at your doing encounters at your ranch. So,
Hmm.
if you could just sort of give us a bit of a rundown for those of us who weren't here last time. Give us a little bit more of a rundown of how you started work. So you're still with MUFON, if I'm not mistaken, and
Yep.
then you sort of migrated over to C-SETI. So some people
Hmm.
see MUFON and C-SETI as different. We just sort of covered that,
Yeah.
but because you have a foot in both camps, how would you describe that, and how did you get involved in that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say that when I first became an investigator or interested in UFOs, I was definitely a nuts and bolts guy. It was like, hey, what is that machine in the air that drives me crazy? We should be able to identify it. However, after I became an investigator and started getting a number of cases under my belt, I began to realize that the um, the explanations that we have really didn't match up to what we were observing. And what I mean by that is, yes, there's the nuts and bolts perspective where you see some object. There's always more to it, and like every case has unique circumstances to that individual. But what I began to realize is that what I termed at first the WOO, woo woo, as in ooh, like an old
Yeah.
sci-fi movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's the paranormal side, or the spiritual side, or the unseen side. Whatever term we use is probably not accurate. We don't really know what it is. But so what happened is that, I kind of converted from nuts and bolts to the woo side, and part of that was because of I also joined a thing called the Experiencer Resource Team of MUFON, which deals not with the UFO but with the person, the human, and their experience and the effect on them. And it's almost like counselor like. You contact them and let them share their story. You make no judgments. You're not trying to solve it or prove it or anything like that. You're just letting their emotions flow. And a lot of times that's all somebody needs. But in other cases, it's more complex and they need more help. So we offer services like to connect them to, um, hypnotherapists or other mental health professionals. Or what's very popular and very helpful are therapy groups with other experiencers. And so I just grew personally um, by having these experiences. And so then what that led to, and again, as you mentioned, Crystal, MUFON is not predominantly interested in the woo woo side.
Mm-hmm.
They try and stick to the nuts and bolts, but obviously, I'm a human and I have my own beliefs
Of
and
course.
thoughts and ideas, and we have the latitude to explore that on our own. So I'm not here representing MUFON as a from the woo woo side for that perspective, but that's how I kind of got there. And so one of the things that was super interesting is the people that you meet in ufology, and you have just such a variety of people. And I again got exposed to different lines, different things that really got me curious, and I wanted to know more and do more. So one of the ways I thought I could do that is I have a small horse ranch. My family and I live here north of Phoenix a little bit, and it's dark and it's quiet and it's rural. And we, I thought it would be a great opportunity to gather some like-minded people together and to start playing around with this a little bit. And I don't want to sound flip about it, playing around. I mean, it is serious, but on the other hand, it's just super interesting, and there is a lot of joy that goes with it. But and so I started inviting people who, were interested, and so we meet basically once a month. Now in the hotter summer months, we don't do it; it's just too hot. But and invite maybe 8 to 10 to 12 people over, and we begin our experience. We can talk more about the specifics of it, but um, we end up, through trial and error and over a period of time, we started getting results, and we were able to record some of those results. And moreover, it wasn't just the C-SETI protocols, but we were having paranormal experiences as well. And Josh is going to talk more about all of that. But let me just say that, I am a more complete person as a result of marrying the nuts and bolts with the woo-woo side. And what I always tell people is, look, if you're into UFOs just to find out what it is, don't bother, because we may never know. We don't know what it is. Now we know that it is, something exists, and that's really interesting, important. But I guess part of my transition is I was driven by finding the answer. Now to me, it's more about the journey, not the destination.
Okay.
Sorry, long-winded, but that's it.
No worries, you're not long-winded. Just you have a lot to explain. Now, I want to sort of go back a little bit about what you're saying, because I think there's a couple of things to point out. So when MUFON first started, they were starting at a time when I think that people, it's also a different time. Humans are very different. And I'm glad that you brought up the point that you were started off and you have like a civil engineering background. So I can totally understand you came from a much more nuts and bolts type of perspective. And that's totally understandable. And when MUFON first started, it came at a time when people, I think, were still more into the nuts and bolts. And I think it was also important to have a nuts and bolts approach, because I think that already, I mean, without getting into sort of the whole sort of like, a conspiracy theory, but I mean, already you had the CIA trying to block off and discredit the whole thing because of back engineering and technology. So I'm not going to go down that road, but basically we know that this was absolutely, even like something at the Condon report was specifically made to discourage people. Okay, my cat is just running around in the background there. People were discouraged, and even Project Blue Book were out there trying to discourage people from actually reporting this and having any kind of interest. So we know for a fact, it's written down, that people were discouraged from looking at it any other way. So I think it was important to have the nuts and bolts approach so that it could be taken seriously, and that people, even scientists, could start to look at it. And that's when you start to have, people like J. Allen Hynek looking at this and from a nuts and bolts perspective and saying, okay, well, wait a minute, there's something a lot more here. And I think also that's where we were in terms of people on this planet. And, especially when you come on a channel like this one, like on like Quantum Portals, it's very clear that we're looking at all aspects of all types of spirituality. And I like Josh's, for example, his perspective and what he's doing, because, and it's also what you're doing as well, but everything is connected. Everything is connected. And I think that right now, where we are in humanity, in history, is that we are at a point where consciousness is rising. And so I think we're able as a species to take the shift from the nuts and bolts and start to integrate. You shouldn't have one or the other. It shouldn't be swinging the pendulum. But integrating at the midpoint and saying we can bring in the technology, bring in the AI, all that kind of stuff, but also bring in the spiritual, which is in its own right is basically a technology that we don't understand.
Yep.
So you know what I mean? So I think that's sort of where it's at, and I think that someone like yourself, Shane, you demonstrate how you've also evolved with that, as long with everybody else. So thank you so much for pointing that out. Just wanted to sort of, so we're going to be jockeying back and forth between you and Josh. Josh, like I was saying just a moment ago, and thank you, Shane, for that beautiful introduction. what I like with Josh, like I was saying, is that he's seeing how everything is connected as well. And Josh, can you tell us a little bit more about how you also came into it? And you're coming from a different perspective as well, and you're coming from a much more, I would say, based on what I've known you so far, a much more, maybe more spiritual, more paranormal perspective. Am I right in saying that?
I would say that when very similar story to Shane. When
Okay.
I first got started, I had my own experiences on my own, some with friends and things, but and I started to want to investigate for myself to be able to solve the mystery, if you will, of what that experience was. Um, and that kind of path of wanting to solve the mystery led me to MUFON. And so, kind of along the same lines as Shane, I of course investigate cases for MUFON within the boundaries that MUFON has established for its case kind of investigation process. But like Shane said, he put it very, a matter
Yeah.
of factly, he's still an individual and he can have his own individual, belief system and experiences and pursue that on his own, separate from the work that he does with MUFON.
Okay.
It would be like saying an executive at Pepsi, if they drink a beverage at home, it has to be a Pepsi.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not case, right? So, um, for me, it became a like a parallel activity. Investigate cases with MUFON, which exposes me to far more experiences that people are having. Right, I get to see, I get to connect with and see experiences that people are having across the state of Arizona, and in some cases across the country. So I get to be exposed to more ways that the phenomena is manifesting itself and presenting itself to people. Now, along that personal journey side, though, um, I started to begin to understand that there, just like in my opinion, there is no separation between what we dub paranormal or supernatural or different things. There's no separation between those activities and what is now called UFOs and UAP and things of that nature. I think that our ancestors from the lands that we're mostly originally from would have called them something else, right? They would have called them jinn or fairies or brownies or various
Wow.
things. But we came here and we dubbed a new name for them. Doesn't mean that the new name is wrong or that the old name is wrong. It's just they've always been here, and I don't think that it does us justice in our effort to try to understand what these things are and why they're here and why they seem so interested in interacting with us, to keep them separated.
Okay.
So, my personal journey was just to understand that it's all connected in some way, that the phenomena in its entirety chooses how it interacts with different people. And that implies some sort of an intelligence behind it.
Okay.
Then, that led on to doing tarot readings for folks and oracle readings for people. That led into using dowsing rods to communicate, which is uh, quite interesting and also quite painful to restrict yourself to yes, no, true, false type questions. Um, and then that led into channeling. So it's just for me, it's an evolution. My first sighting that I had back in May of 2020 was my initiation moment.
Okay.
And then from then it has been an evolutionary path with each experience becoming more having more depth as to the type of experience and really touching and reaching different parts of me that just seeing a light in the sky you know, would not touch.
Okay. Well, that's really interesting, and my cat is causing havoc. She never really does this, so if at any point my background comes flying down, it's because she's going crazy. I'm so sorry about that. But I wanted to sort of actually let people know that tomorrow we are having a discussion group. And if you want to join me, Shane, and Josh to discuss one on one with some of your experiences, then please let us know. Join Meetup. And you can also send us your information. You can contact us on Meetup, send us your email if you want to be a part of the group, the discussion group tomorrow. So I just wanted to put that out there. But for going further, I wanted to sort of go back to your experiences, both Shane and Josh, because I find it interesting. Usually, when you look at someone who's an investigator, you sort of just assume that they're coming in and they're exploring something, and that's it. They don't have any kind of actual experience. And Shane, I know that last time we were here, you talked about an experience that you had. You've been having experiences since you've been a young man, and I wanted to know if you could sort of tell us more about that, and then we can come back and then speak with Josh. Maybe you could tell us a little bit more about the exact experience that you had. Is that cool?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
sure.
Yeah. So when I was a young kid, growing up, I grew up in Spokane, Washington, and we had a home with a basement. It was a finished basement, except for there was a storage room where my parents would, stock up on food and stuff for the winters. Sometimes they can be harsh, and we had a big freezer and all that kind of stuff, and just storage. So it was unfinished, and the back of the stairway was exposed. And from the time I was probably maybe like 8 or 10, when I would go into that room, I had this overwhelming sensation or impression that there was like there, it was a very negative energy. And though I couldn't physically see with my eyes, I knew it emanated from under the stairwell, and that it in my mind's eye, I don't know how, but I saw like a little gremlin like thing. And it it clearly did not want me in that room. And so whenever I went into that room, I did my business as quick as I could and got out, because that thing was sitting there and was growling at me and indicating to me in some telepathic way. I don't know. I can't explain it, but I got the very definite impression it wanted to hurt me. It wanted me out of there. And so I obliged. And then as I grew older, uh, I by the time I was a teenager, I decided I'm going to move down into the basement. There was a bedroom down there, and I was a drummer and played a drum set and stuff. So my parents were like, "Yeah, go downstairs. That'll be cool." And so then what happened is it began entering my dreams, and it was much more ferocious. I could see it, not literally with my eyes, but within the dream, I could definitely see it. And it wanted to intimidate me, but somehow in my mind, I knew it couldn't really hurt me. But in one of these dreams, it grabbed me, it shoved me against the wall, pushed me up, and held my head almost against the ceiling. And it had its face right in my face. And it was just trying to, just in the worst way, just cause fear and intimidate me. And something clicked in my head. And I said, No, you don't intimidate me. I know you're not allowed to hurt me. Now, I don't know why I knew that, but in my mind, I was so convicted that it took all the fear away. And I just said, Look, I know you're not allowed to hurt me. This is all bluster, whatever jollies you get from this. No, no more. I'm not putting up with it. And believe it or not, it stopped after that. And then I completely forgot about that for 40 years,
Okay.
until I kind of started connecting again with this side of it. And then I remembered all of this stuff. And it's so curious to me that I just didn't think to tell anybody or anything. I just dealt with it, and it was done and over. So that was my kind of you know introduction into it. But I blew it off for 40 years, and then things like that started coming back. However, I will say, in 2016 September 2016, I had my own UFO experience.
Oh, okay.
And yes, and in fact, I have a video of it I can show you
Oh,
later. And
please.
Crystal, we had talked about my first stint here. I had a little presentation with about a dozen or two interesting videos. I have that available. So if we have time, I can go through those slides for everyone to
Sure.
share, and we can see some interesting videos. And one of them is my actual sighting, which that sighting led me to join MUFON, become an investigator. So I kind of almost look at this as like a graduated procedure or process to get me, to get me to where I am now. Again, from having no interest, no memory of it, to being kind of curious around 2010, watching TV shows, and then I started researching it. Then I became an investigator, then the ERT, and now I went from nuts and bolts to woo woo. I mean, it's just been this steady increase in my progression. Again, the journey. That has been so meaningful and valuable to me.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because I'm looking at the comments here, and I see hi Renee Mathieu, and she's saying it sounds like a night hag. And I was actually going to say something similar, that it probably was like a night hag, or like maybe a succubus or something like that. Like they sort of sit on your chest and cause night terrors, that sort of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And it's funny you should
Mm-hmm.
say that about how you forgot about it, and then many years later you're kind of like, oh, wait a minute, because I also had something very similar, where I would have, like, I'd be frozen and I would see things or hear things, and all this kind of stuff happening, and I always felt something was always there, and I my mom was a single parent and she went back to school. So I was always at home alone, latchkey kid, that Gen X, Gen X rules. And then, and so I was at home often on my own, and I just sort of chalked it up to just being afraid. But I think when I look back, I think there was some stuff going on. I think we were my mother told me later on, many years later, that, yeah, you were following things as a little child and things would go through the wall and stuff like that. So it's kind of weird how we have these experiences, but then we don't really sort of give it any credence. And then later on, we're like, wait,
Yeah.
I think there was something there, So it's
Yeah.
there's something going on. But yeah, we'd love to see those slides. We can maybe probably bring it up into the next hour of the show.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that I think that when you have these types of experiences, it makes you open to different aspects, because it's not always going to be, and sometimes it is, but sometimes you don't just have like the UFO and then the door opens and then grays and that's it. Like there's all lots of other different things that are going on. And people who have been watching our shows, we've been talking a lot with different guests about how things can get kind of weird. Things sort of go color outside the lines. So there's nothing really sort of specific. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
I'm very, very, I'm intrigued by the kind of experience you have, because I think a lot of people have turned around and who've come on the show and said, yeah, I actually had experience. Josh,
Yeah.
how about
Yeah.
you? What was it for you? Oh, sorry, Shane. Did you want to finish up?
Nope. Nope. That's it. That's
Okay,
great. I
perfect.
I really love.
Yeah, and Shane, sorry, Josh, did you want to tell us a little bit more about your experience? Because I think you also had an experience when you were a bit younger as well, something similar along the
I
lines.
Yeah, I did. And by the way, I also have some slides prepared with some of the experiences that I've had since
Oh,
2020,
okay, great.
and some of the catches that I've had with cameras and such. So we can get to those later as well if you'd like. Yeah. So when I was a child, I remember hearing from family and things, various events where kind of displayed psychic gifts. One account is often comes to mind. My dad was deployed. He was in the military. He was overseas in Germany, I think, doing some training or something. And I was asleep on my grandmother's bed, and kind of woke up and shot up and started saying, dad's in trouble, there's a fire, dad's in trouble. they got me calmed down and back to bed. Then the next day or so, my dad was able to call my mom, and he let her know, if in case you see anything on the news, there was a fire here. I'm okay, but there was fire. So it was, my friend Stefan often says that was a pudding moment, in that the proof is in the pudding. And so it was it's just something that kind of reminds me a lot that I have the predisposition, let's say, to be connected with spirit or entities or whatever the case may be. But the thing that I think about when I talk about something that happened to me when I was younger, I didn't actually recall until August of 2019. I had a dream, a very vivid dream. I'd had vivid dreams before, but nothing like this. And it was so uh, vivid and real that it honestly, and I still to this day feel like it was a memory that was being replayed as a dream. Um, I saw myself in first person. I was holding the hand of some entity, and I was standing in the field at my grandparents' house, and a craft hovered above. And I have a photographic memory. That's what the eidetic is, the I guess the scientific term. But and so I everything I remember at all the time, and I can easily recall things. And so right now, when I'm describing to you this dream or memory that I had, I'm replaying it in my head as if it's happening. Um, at the time, I didn't know what to make of it. I In the memory dream, whatever you want to call it, I looked up at the entity that was holding my hand. I couldn't see much about the entity, but I knew that it turned and looked down at me, and it said, Josh, you're a hybrid, and because of this, you will have an interesting life. And then from there,
Ooh.
I just kind of woke up from that, dream memory situation. Uh, and,
Wow.
o- and over the next, wow, probably month to three, let's say month to three, I had all kinds of downloads, and just like
Wow.
all kinds of bells and whistles got turned on, that had been, I guess, laying dormant for a long
Oh
time.
my God. Wow. And it's funny because kind of like what Shane and I were talking about, and now what you're revealing is that I think for the most part, many of us have sort of just lived our lives and sort of just gone about, our everyday, and that's fine. And, even if you have a photographic memory, I get the impression from what you're describing, it was sort of just so stuffed in the background there. It's there. I know it's there, but it's just sort of like, boop, it's right in the background right there, and not really sort of front and center. And in the last couple of years, somehow we are being turned on. People
Mhm.
are being turned on everywhere. People are saying all of a sudden these gifts are coming online, or all of a sudden, I kind of knew it was there, but then it's sort of like it's in front and center, not in the background somewhere. And it's really really fascinating how what you're talking about, and we have to get to this hybrid thing because that's something else. How much time do we have tonight? But it's really impressive, and who you are, doing MUFON investigations. Now, how do you feel, or how did you feel at the time when you were told? And I mean, you're saying it wasn't a dream, but it wasn't really a vision. It's sort of like you're kind of in between a dimensional time. You know what I mean? I don't know. How do you feel now? Like, so here we are. You've bared your soul. You feel
Yep.
like you're a hybrid. Do you know you're a hybrid between human and what race? Do you know anything about that?
So I have explored it numerous times over the last, about about 7 years now.
Yeah.
Not to say the 6 7 thing, like the, but um, but um,
Oh,
I've
you
ex-
guys.
but I've explored it many times with guides and in meditations and things. And what I honestly feel that it is a hybridization of energy, not a physicality.
Okay.
So I don't think that my body is hybridized with some other physical presence. I do think that there are energies that reside within my body that give me access to other capabilities, or a deeper access to those capabilities. And that's what is the hybridization part.
Wow.
Um,
Okay.
I'll also say that I also believe that or feel that I was a walk in, if you're not
Oh,
familiar with that term.
yeah, absolutely.
Um,
Yeah, we have a
okay.
gentleman that comes on, who came on a couple of times and talked about being a walk-in, Troy J.
Oh,
Bacon. So guys, check out his work as well. But yeah, go on.
Yep. So I walked in when I was in 10th grade, but reside dual residency until 2019 when that
Okay.
memory dream occurred. Um,
Hmm.
and
Okay.
then I'll also add that the reason that I think it was a memory dream, or rather, it was a memory that I got to re-witness in a
Mm-hmm.
dream, is because when I woke, I had smells. I could smell my grandparents' farm. I could smell everything that was around it. Smells are not typically things that come up in dreams, but they are very strong, steeped in memory. So,
Okay. I see.
yeah.
Okay, that's very interesting, and that really sort of brings it to a very different level, you guys, because it's interesting how, first of all, the two of you met, and I'm kind of wondering if there's any kind of connection going on there. There's a different a soul contract between the two of you, maybe. What do you think, Shane? Because like that's sort of what I pick up stuff as well, and I'm also an intuitive, and I'm just picking there's a bit of a soul contract between the two of you, because the two of you are coming together in this type of work and are sharing things together. I don't want to sort of go off so much topic, but that's sort of what I'm getting. Shane, did you have thoughts?
yeah. Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah.
Josh is a big part of opening the woo side to me, and Josh is channeled. I have been. I was the interviewer
Mm-hmm.
of the channeled being, and we've done that a number of times. We have had voice box sessions. We have had so many of those experiences that you know absolutely we're connected. Now, even before that, like I said, I wasn't really into the woo, but
Mm-hmm.
I recognized that it was important, and Josh came along at that time and then
Okay.
completely opened my world. So
Yeah.
yeah, we are absolutely I haven't probably told him that, but
Well, you
he
will
has
now.
been really, yeah, very integral to
Mm-hmm.
my personal development
Mm-hmm.
on that level. and
Yeah.
and Josh is very talented and has skills that I don't possess.
Mm-hmm.
um, However, he has taught me how to sort of access the level of skill that I do have, which is minimal. But
Mm-hmm.
we've had some remote viewing sessions that were absolutely no two ways about it, real.
Yeah.
We have had other encounters that absolutely real. So yeah, I think we were meant to cross each other's paths,
Yeah.
and we I've helped him in his development on the MUFON side. He's helped me on the other side, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's been a very good partnership.
Absolutely.
What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, Josh, tell us what you think. And
Yeah.
as I was saying, I'm picking up an akashic agreement between the two of you to come down. And I'm also picking the Akashic agreement as well that Josh made in order to have that walk in. But that's another story.
Yeah.
Josh, did you want to have comments? Because what I'd like to do is also go on to some questions that some people have for you guys. So I'll let Josh make a comment, and then we can go to some questions that people have. Josh?
Yeah. I'll say that my move. So I'm originally from Kentucky. I
Mm-hmm.
moved here with my family in 2022, June. Don't ever move to Arizona in summer.
No.
Um, but uh, I, when I came out to visit friends and fell in love with Arizona, and then brought my family a few months later, and they fell in love with Arizona, I knew then that I was supposed to be in Arizona.
Yeah.
Um, and part of that was meeting Shane. I had actually interviewed Shane on my podcast a few months before friends moved here. And then when I came out to visit them, we all got together. And one of the things that I have to show tonight is after a CE5, the three of us got together after a CE5, we had an experience.
Okay.
So there's just a strong pull for me to be here. The other thing I'll add around Arizona in general, the craft that I saw in my memory dream um, was very unique. I had never seen a craft like it before. It kind of looked like an oval, but in the back of it, a notch was missing, like an entire notched out section.
Okay.
Um,
Like a
when
scoop,
I
like a scoop coming out, like a.
um,
Uh,
no, well, like let's say that you had a dark oval and you overlaid a white oval, the the inlay that would create that kind of
okay.
swoop down. So
A
it was more
horseshoe.
like a almost like a horseshoe type shape. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough.
But more of the oval was still present.
Okay.
Um, so that craft, as a part of doing my investigations and things and getting into MUFON, when I started looking into sightings that had occurred in Arizona, obviously everybody knows the Phoenix Lights.
Yeah.
But in 1947, there was a sighting in Arizona that predates Roswell. And if you look up the picture of that craft, that's the craft that was hovering
Oh
over me in my
wow.
dream.
Wow.
That's a William Rhodes case, by the way.
William Rhodes.
Rhodes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And in fact, there's a photograph
Mm-hmm.
of
Yep.
that UFO in the Arizona Republic from 1947. To
Mm-hmm.
me, one of the best doggone photos
Mm-hmm.
you could ever have, because 1947, you had zero technological
Right.
capability to fake that, right? It's either you threw a pie plate and photographed it, or it was real, right?
Yep.
And that photo well illustrates exactly what you saw, Josh.
In my opinion, better than the McMinnville photos as well.
Yeah, yeah, pretty
Yeah.
awesome. Look it
Yeah.
up,
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
It's a
I'm
Yeah.
good
gonna
one.
take. Okay. I think I'm trying to find a copy of the UFO, and I think I found it here so that people can sort of have a look at it. So I will
Ooh, that'd be
try
cool.
and sort of get it here for people to take a look. But in the meantime, I have here a question while I'm looking up that photo. I have here from CG8621. Says, I'm curious what bells and whistles got turned on. And I think this is for Josh. I have experienced a similar memory that came through on a dream. Is that the same as what you're talking about? Like, what do you mean, Josh, by bells and whistles coming on?
Yeah. So I think for me, it was uh, the best thing that I can think about is like you're in a control room and there's all these different switches and lights and things that are around you. The the dream for me triggered some of those switches and lights to start lighting up. And how it manifested in me is it really just ignited. I mean, I've always been intuitive. It served me throughout all of my life, my professional career, my personal life. But when after that dream, that memory dream, uh, my intuitiveness was more easy to recognize. Um, my ability to control my own energies became easier. I still had mentors and things that helped me with the ability to do so, but everything just came easier. Every you know, basically in the last 6 years, for a lot of my friends that have been in this space, friends and colleagues that have been in this space for their entire life, I learned I am at their level within 5 to 6 years. And that's what I mean by bells and whistles. It was like all of a sudden, um, just everything turned on, and my ability to comprehend, my ability to access, my ability to recognize when I had access, because that sometimes is the hardest part. All of that just started working, and it allowed me to really accelerate my the learning that I needed to undergo to be where I am now.
Great. And I also have another question here. I think it's also for Josh, and it's from Linda HDET Eternally. What is a walk in? Maybe you can explain
Yep.
for people who what a walk in is exactly.
So the best way that I can describe it is the human body exists to serve as a spacesuit for your soul or spirit to interact with this world. And it's not just the human body. Any anything like there have been notices of people incarnating as stars and planets and meteors and clouds and you name it. So it's not just the human body. I don't know if there's other entities that also serve as walk-ins, but at least within my case, it's the human body. So basically what it is when my body received a soul, um, it was from a different energy. Then in the 10th grade, the energy that I am now entered the body. This was a predetermined activity. It wasn't like I think somebody asked if it was a possession. It wasn't a
Yeah, somebody
possession.
was asking about that as a
Yeah.
possession, but no. Huh?
It's not a possession. It's a predetermined activity that's going to happen. Then we had dual residency for a period of time. I think about it as like training wheels,
Okay.
right? I entered into the body when it was what 10th grade would be like 16 or so. So I entered into the body at 16. I had no knowledge of how the body behaves, how it reacts, what this physical experience is going to be like. So I had training wheels where the other energy still occupied the body to allow things to move throughout, but we had dual residency. So I think about it as the other energy was the firmware, if you will, in the computer term,
Mm-hmm.
and I was the operating system. So I had access to the brain and all the senses, but the other energy really just kind of kept things going throughout their daily routine, kept the existing relationships and friendships established. But even then, in when I was 17 years old, because of the walk-in activity, I had access to more of my psychic ability than I'd ever had access to before. I
Okay.
started doing things even then that I didn't recognize what they were. And, because I'm sure as a child, the first time you walk, you're like, oh, I'm walking, but you don't really know that that's what it is because you've never done it before.
Okay.
So that's basically it. A walk in is an energy that comes into the body. Sometimes the energy that's there leaves completely. Sometimes it's dual residency for a while and then it leaves. Sometimes it never leaves. But I've had the privilege of interviewing someone who was a walk-in at the age of 46,
Okay.
and the energy that she had previous completely left, and she took over.
Okay, that is very interesting because usually you think about the walk-in as being much earlier in one's life, but I mean, anything's possible, right? There you go.
Well, time isn't linear.
Time isn't linear, exactly. So that's exactly what it is. Now, before we pass on to talking more about C-SETI, because we've sort of just gone off on it, I love it, but it's we're gonna have more fun tomorrow when we have our discussion group. But for this evening, I actually found the picture of the William Rhodes photograph.
Oh,
So it says here July 7th, 1947, and Rhodes UFO photographs. I see what it means. Okay, so it looks sort of like a part cut out on the back here of the UFO. And that's very interesting. And I think that this is what Josh was saying, that this is a UFO that he saw when he was having his experience, like his dream, as it were. And I think this is Mr. Rhodes himself, if I'm not mistaken, from 1947. And this is, I think, Mr. William Rhodes. And he saw the UFO. I guess he took the picture, William Rhodes. And yeah, so it's very interesting. This is something. I mean, I've seen the picture before. When you look at UFO photos, but I didn't really understand the backstory behind it. So it's interesting how Josh, you had a bit of a connection there. That's very interesting. Sticking on the same wavelength in terms of speaking about UFOs, can you give us a little bit more background, Shane, as to Dr. Stephen Greer and how he started the C-SETI? How did that start, and when did it start, and why did he do this instead of doing the MUFON way, as it were?
Yeah. So Dr. Greer was really, I would say, a pioneer in bringing the UFO disclosure idea to the public in around 2001, 2, or 3 time period, where he held the first UFO disclosure meetings at the press club in Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
And he put together a very impressive team of people who were involved in the UFO mystery, let's say. Um, Yet they were very credentialed people. So to me, this was among the first of the whistleblowers, the modern day whistleblower phenomena. And he had put together this press club meeting that was held like almost a congressional hearing type style. And he brought in some really impressive folks like Robert Salas, for example, in the case where in Maelstrom, Montana, that a UFO had shut down 10 UFO or 10 nuclear silos. That was a big case in 1967, I think it was, and brought Robert Salas out. And so it was people of of those credentials that really began this modern day effort of disclosure. And so I really take my hat off to Dr. Greer for that. He really approached it, from a very intellectually, solid methodology.
Mm-hmm.
But and then over the years, he continued to do that, and he eventually evolved a little bit, kind of like, again, from the nuts and bolts side, then to the woo-woo side.
Mm-hmm.
He began to realize that there was more to it than the nuts and bolts stuff, and began pursuing that side of it. And he eventually developed what we call today the CE5 protocol, which is the CE5 is derived from what J. Allen Hynek created, was a scale to measure the quality of a UFO sighting. So he had CE representing close encounter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Close encounter of the first kind was seeing an object within 500 feet. Then CE2 was seeing an object within 500 feet, but also the sight of an occupant. And then CE3, goes on and escalates. CE4 is not Dr. J. Allen Hynek's. This is something Stephen Greer had added, a CE4 being an abduction. And then CE5 is where humans reach out and connect to them, to whomever they are. And so he started this protocol, and then he began putting groups of people together to participate, because there seems to be added power, or I don't know the right word, when you have multiple people focused on this through meditation and intention, positive spiritual intention, that you derive good results. And so he's been doing this for quite some time, and he's had good success with it. And even now, people might be familiar with, like Jake Barber and others who are part of the military industrial complex,
Mm-hmm.
who have been, within Black programs, have been tasked with engaging these UAP. And they developed, based on really Dr. Greer's protocol of this meditation method, and the use of audible frequencies to make a connection. And so you can actually download an app, a CE5 app on your phone by Dr. Greer, and it goes through this particular process. Now, it isn't like mandatory and you have to do it exactly like that, but the principle is set forth. And so when we, Josh and I and others, began meeting here at my ranch, we started doing the same thing. We at first followed Dr. Greer's application. We used it. It had particular tones in it, tones derived from frequencies in recent crop circles,
Mm-hmm.
as other tones, and blended them and created sort of this thing. Well, it turns out that the military folks have been also doing that, and they claim a 100% effectiveness when playing these generated tones in terms of drawing in a UAP. So yeah, it's definitely on the right track, and it's been tweaked a little by different folks, including me and Josh, but the military folks. And that little bit of nuance and flexibility, who knows why that works, but it does. And it's probably, I think it's really intention based, right? If you have an open heart and an open mind to it, a genuine sincerity and understanding and making that connection, and I almost, in my technical brain, I think of it as, look, consciousness is like, from a computer perspective, the cloud.
Mm-hmm.
And the cloud, just to make it simple for folks, all the cloud is everybody else's computer. And when you connect to the cloud, you can utilize the information and the computing power of other computers. Well, same way, it's sort of like that. Consciousness is out there, available for all of us to connect to, once we figure it out, have a desire to do it. And then it allows us to really communicate with everyone who's connected, right?
Absolutely.
Including whatever UAP is. And I think that's what's happening. And so everybody's connection might be slightly different. The methodology might be slightly different. And I'm sure Josh is going to have more on this.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, the concept, it's the intention, it's the sincerity of heart. And when properly applied, you can actually call them in, and they will interact with you.
Mm-hmm.
So powerful stuff, really is.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I have here a comment from Renee Mathieu. She says collective consciousness. And I would even go a step further and say the Akashic records, because the Akasha is where everything is located. And, people can call it a different name, but it's really the Akasha where we have all our information. Because I know that when you look at the work of psychic, oh my God, what's his name? But different psychics that access information. Even someone like Nikola Tesla, they talk about how all that information is there. You just have to learn how to meditate to sort of get to it. So what's interesting about the app is that it's taking a much more sort of like, it's a technological perspective, but it's also a way for people to access it. And I remember hearing about Stephen Greer way back in 93, like when he was really first starting, like he was doing stuff in 93. And at the time I was like, okay, that's kind of interesting. But I think also myself, I was more into the nuts and bolts and I really didn't understand what he was doing. And it was also a time where we didn't have, the internet. So it was sort of hard to sort of get into connection with that. But I almost sense that now a lot more people are interested because a lot of people want to have that connection, and I think that people, and this is what I was saying before at the top of the hour, where I think that people are realizing that we've been sold a lie about this idea of these aliens coming down and shooting and alien invasion and all that kind of nonsense. And I mean, those movies are fun. And this is not to say, however, because I know some people, and Susan, I'm looking at you, but I know some people are saying that not all extraterrestrials are benevolent. And I think that it's not even so much about not benevolent, but rather they have different agendas. And even if they have a different agenda, but they're still not coming down and blowing shit up. Like they're still kind of sort of keeping a hands off sort of approach. I think one thing that people would probably want to know is how do you know who you're connecting with, or how do you know who to connect with when you're doing these types of exercises with the CE5?
Is that for me or
Yeah,
Josh?
for Shane. Sorry, just quickly, and then we
Yeah.
move on to Josh. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great observation. And let me just expand for a moment on that. So good and bad. Okay, let's talk about that.
Okay.
Good and bad. What is good and bad? Well, is it right and wrong? Is it moral, immoral? Is it evil? Is it good? What so one of my experiences with the ERT has been, interviewing hundreds of people, or dozens of people, let's say, who have had experiences, and there are commonalities. In fact, when someone does reach out to MUFON in that regard, there's a 25 question questionnaire, and that questionnaire was designed to help identify the nature of the experience that people are having. Because a lot of times, just as we've all said here, when we first have them, we don't know what the heck's going on. We don't know what to think about it. And so these questions help us as investigators or support people to help that person kind of sort through what this means, what their experience means. And it is so interesting. I don't know. It's hard for me to put in words. I guess I've lost my train of thought.
Okay. No
but
worries.
but
It's
that's not.
yeah. So, and Josh, what's your take on it in terms of like, for example, people who know me know that I'm very much into Bashar, and Bashar is a channeler and channeled by Daryl Anka. And Bashar often talks about how they have their ships above Sedona, Arizona, and that there's a very, very strong portal energy above Sedona, Arizona. You find a lot of different groups there. And supposedly, according to him, there are a lot of different groups that are there, and that if you're doing the CE5 work meditation, that you're most likely going to connect with their people, like the Esasani people. But Josh, did you have a perspective on how it is that when you're doing the CE5 meditation, what kind of groups you might encounter or not encounter? What's your take on it?
Yeah. So I for the most part, I try to keep a high vibrational state, love, high energy, to the point where only those things that have my best interest in mind are allowed to connect and come through in the space that we are operating or holding space in. I tend to blend a little bit of kind of like spell type work into what we're doing. Making sure that we ground ourselves and that we shield, as a part of a meditation practice, so that we're really protecting ourselves from anything potentially negative that could come into the space. It's basically not allowed or welcome there. When I lead the meditations, I always advise everyone to, imagine yourself within, an energy bubble, or a strong crystal, or whatever the case, whatever you want to visualize, And the only things that are allowed to pass through the barrier are the things that you allow to do so. And so, hopefully in doing, those additional extra practices at the beginning of every meditation and grounding and shielding, we limit the amount of potential for negative experiences to occur.
Yeah.
The other thing I'll say is
Sorry, when
that,
you say grounding, just to sort of be clear, when you say grounding, how do you ground yourself? Because I think we hear a lot ground, ground, ground this, but how do you actually do it? If you want to sort of quickly integrate
yep,
in your answer.
a really easy way is just to imagine or visualize. If you can't visualize, just say the words out loud. Um, that there are roots that go from the bottom of your feet all the way down into the earth, and you are grounded and you're a part of the earth. When I do it, I take it a couple steps farther and I ground into the earth. I ground to the center of the universe, and then I ground into the center of the astral plane as well, so that I am grounded in three different dimensional spots. I am locked in place and I am secured in my frequency and my experience.
Okay, that's really interesting. And so, when he's has oh has
Sorry.
Stephen Greer ever mentioned exactly who he's connected with? Because I know that there are different people that can have different connections, but is there a group that he himself actually connects to himself? Has he ever shared that kind of information? Shane or Josh, anybody wanted to?
I, I'm not aware of any specific group that he has identified as connecting with. Um, I think that they kind of take a similar approach in that they just want to reach out for contact of any sort with anything that wants to come and be with them in that space.
Okay.
They do things very similar. I don't know that if he does a grounding exercise or shielding exercise, but I know he does things to like prepare the space, such as, conducting rituals and things like that to prepare the space for a high energy contact. So I would imagine that, the entities or beings that he is connecting with are also there for the benefit of the folks that are involved in that session.
Okay, great. And the name that I was looking for before. Whoops. The name that I was looking for before was Edgar Casey.
Okay. Yeah.
Edgar Casey was always talking about how there was always a. That's where he drew his information from when he would go to, go into the trance. He would look at the Akashic records to get information. And so there seems to be sort of like a super highway of information, and everybody can sort of tap in at their own leisure. Anybody can walk into the library and sort of use it for their own purposes. So I'm wondering if we can talk about how when I think Josh. I think Shane told us about it, but Josh, did you tell us about your first time when you did the CE5 exercise and what happened? What did you feel like, or what happened with you when you did it?
Yes. The first time I did CE5 was with my friend Stefan in my backyard when I lived in Kentucky. This was in May of 2020.
Okay.
And we saw, it was sometime after we had done it. We had actually done quite a bit of different things that evening. Some stuff with Ouija board, some things with using an Estes method with a voice box or a ghost box. If you're not familiar with that, you basically take a ghost box, you pipe it through earbuds, you then put headphones on and a blindfold so that it basically, kind of puts you in almost like a trance state. And then you can pick up on words and messages that are coming through on the ghost box that again is piped into your ears on earbuds.
Okay.
So we've done a number of things. I don't know that I can necessarily attribute any, the sighting that I had to any one of the things that we did, but all of them, again, kind of to echo the previous statement, all of them, again, were towards keeping the vibration high, the energy high in the space that we were in.
Okay, great.
So,
And you can just simply say, look, we're reaching out to only positive
yeah,
entities, and and just make it clear. And I relate that back to that experience when I was a teenager, and that entity, tried to intimidate me. And I said, frankly, no, you're not going to do it. I resisted it, and it went away. And so I think there's power, probably based on our free will, that when you get together as a group and you say, look, we only want positive energy here. If it's negative, it's not welcome. And then, like Josh had mentioned, we do an opening and we do a closing, to make sure.
You close the portal, yeah?
And when we all walk away, we're safe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I know that sometimes people, especially when people are young, people are playing with the Ouija board, they just open it up and they walk away, and then the doors open, as it were, and things just sort of start coming through. So, if you are going to do a Ouija board, folks, please make sure that you know what you're doing, or just don't touch it, because it can really lead to some very, very nightmarish situations. So, only do with somebody who knows what they're talking about, and make sure that you're grounded specifically, and also make sure that you're surrounding yourself with light. So very, very important. So we're at the top of the hour here. And I know that you guys said that you had some pictures and some slides you wanted to show. So Shane, did you want to start with your own little couple of slides or pictures? And then we can move on to Josh. So while you're getting
Josh
that... Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, Josh is going to be more complex. Mine are going to be pretty simple.
Okay.
Like I said, they're videos of cases that I've done, and I can whip through it in 5 minutes or 30 minutes. Just depends if folks are interested. I can tell them a little about each case.
Sure.
But they are videos and photos that are real, received from actual cases that I have done.
Okay, well, it's 9:05 right now, and so we also want to give Josh some time. So maybe we can go from, like, let's say 9:05 to 9:30, give you about a good 20 minutes or so. And then after that, Josh can pop in and do his part. So while you're getting that set up, I'm just going to let people know again. Guys, we are having a discussion group tomorrow live with Shane and Josh. We are going to be going over some of the exercises and some of the techniques that you can use to connect yourself to higher beings. So if you want to join us, you can send us an email, a private DM here on Quantum Portals. I will get that email and I will add you to the list, and you can join us tomorrow. So send us a DM. And if you have other questions, folks, I see that the chat is live tonight. And so if you have any more questions for our guests tonight, please let us know. As well, don't forget to sign up for our newsletter. We have a great newsletter. You can find out more information. All the information is down in the comments below. Sign up for our newsletter. And you can read more stories. And also we have a section where if you want to share your own stories of contact, or with cryptids, or with orbs, or ghosts, or whatever you have, share with us and let us know, and we are going to have a chance to sort of go over them at a later date and to discuss them, and you can sort of appear here on the show and talk about your experiences. So I'm looking forward to having members or anybody here who's watching us tonight share their experiences with us. So without further ado, Shane, I'll let you take it away.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, if I share it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, let's see. See what I can get here.
Drum roll, please.
Yeah.
It's always like, we always all to hold our breath. But you know what? This is the fun part about being live. I know my moderators always say, no, let them share the picture so you can do it. But you know what, though? It's always fun. And when you consider how things are changing on YouTube, they want more live action. It doesn't get any more live than this, So whenever you're ready, Shane, we're waiting for you.
Okay. All right, let me do this.
Okay.
Yes. Are you seeing my presentation?
No,
Are you seeing it?
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
I'll
right,
just switch until
let me see what's
you're
going on
ready
here.
to go.
I need.
Okay. Yeah, this is why. So while we're waiting, so Josh, did you want to sort of?
Okay, hang on here.
You got it?
Let's see.
Okay. Oh, there it is. Okay, so I think we're almost there. Almost there. Oh, no. Almost. You almost had it there.
Hmm.
Okay. Well, maybe we can start off with Josh and then we can come back, swing
Well,
back to you.
yeah, let
Yeah.
Josh.
Okay, Josh, did you want to sort of
Okay,
share
sounds good.
your photos and slides with us? And then we'll come back to Shane when he's ready there. Yeah, Josh. There you go.
Okay.
Okay, great.
All right. So, just want to put a couple of things together here. We can step through. I want to make sure I reiterate,
Did you
so
want to put it at full screen so we can just see it at full screen?
what do you see it as now?
It's okay. Okay, well, what I'll do is I'll do it myself. There we go. Okay, you're fine. Go ahead.
Okay. The reason I don't do full screen is I have a 34-inch widescreen
Oh,
monitor
okay.
and it take it really, really big.
Oh, okay.
But so the contact modalities that we follow are, a meditation, which includes that grounding, shielding part. Reach out with the heart with love. Ask for contact. Be open to any contact in any form. That's the key. If you say I want to see a light in the sky and you don't see a light in the sky, you're going to think that the evening was a failure, right? But if you're open to and watching for any contact, then sometimes things come through that you weren't expecting. So my first experience, we talked about it briefly. This was in Kentucky. This is a recreation, best I could get it to approximation, but a bright light appeared above a tall oak tree in my backyard in Kentucky, and hovered there for probably 10 to 15 seconds before shooting straight up into the sky and leaving a cone of light behind it that didn't dissipate. The point at the bottom of the cone then followed, like retracted back up into the light after it had gone up. So I actually reported this case to MUFON, and it was found as unknown. They didn't have an explanation for it. And if I were to hold out a quarter in my hand at arm's length, that's about how big it was in the sky. So that's a pretty big white light hovering there in the tree.
That's
Then,
impressive. Yeah.
yeah. Then this was the March one that I spoke about. I came out to Arizona to visit my friend Stefan, who had moved here, and me and Stefan and Shane went out near Carefree, Arizona, and did CE5. And I'm gonna hopefully this video will play a little bit of a inception right now with playing a YouTube video inside of a YouTube live stream. But uh, so this is being filmed with a Psionics Aurora Pro. It's a night vision camera or video camera. This kind of flickering thing here off to the side is just a different camera that's running. But the road runs parallel to or perpendicular to our position. So this orb just kind of appeared off in the distance and just kind of sat there.
Okay. And
Uh,
you had called something out, like you had called out to
yep,
say, "Can you show yourself?" Okay. Okay.
yep, exactly. So I don't think the volume is important here, but it's just this light. And this video is about 3.5 minutes long. We don't have to watch the whole thing, but it just kind of sat there. And it really felt like it was closer to us than farther away. And I'll tell you that, and Shane can echo this, where this is in that direction is just open desert. There's nothing out there that would create this light. So, all right. So moving on. Um, in September of 2021, I had a black triangle sighting. This was during the pandemic. And we were at a point where I could take my kids to school if every day I went and got them tested and they tested negative, then I could take them to school. So we were driving, again, this is in Kentucky. We were driving towards where we had to go to get tested. We had to cut through a little wooded road. We were out kind of out in a rural area, and this black triangle just silently flew at the treetops. Um, Again, I reported this one to MUFON, and again, no no solution or answer for what it was. It was just like what this shows. It was a black triangle, white light on each kind of angle, and then a red light in the middle. And it just
Looks
kind
very
of like,
much like the UFOs that people were seeing in Brussels, I think in Brussels in 1989, and
mhm, yep.
they were seeing something similar. No.
I believe
Yeah.
so. I mean, the black
Yeah.
triangle has been kind of a constant sighting thing for many years now. People either see it in this, like the white lights on each corner with the red light in the middle, or the white lights on each corner with a white light in the middle. But it was very ominous, and unfortunately, I was driving, like I said, to get my kids tested so that they could go to school. And so I couldn't pull over and take pictures or video or any of that kind of stuff. It seems to be what happens whenever you have a really great sighting. You're always in a situation where you really can't do anything to capture it.
Yeah,
There's
and
one.
sorry, and somebody was saying that this. I think this is a message from Susan Johnson, and she says here that this is the SSF TR3B craft. Does that say anything to you?
Yeah, that's one of the. There is a TR3B that was supposedly developed by a contracting agency. Um, and one of Greer's kind of statements is that any triangular craft is man-made. It's very possible. As a evidence-based individual, it's hard for me to make that distinction. Provide me proof that says that's the case, and I'll accept it as true. So until I receive, some sort of evidence that supports that case, I'm going to continue to think, it could be any number of things.
Yeah, and
But
it's also another, because if you look at some of the pictures that Bashar, channeled by Daryl Anka, he says that his ships are also triangular. So I don't think they're made. I mean, they're not man-made from Earth. So I think there are many different
yeah,
triangle ships. I know I see here Hybridor is also saying TR3B. Thank you, Hybridor, for your comment. And so I think they're done. It's an interesting format to shape your craft in, but I think there's other groups that also that are off planet that make their ships that way. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, in the vacuum of space, if that's where this travels, it doesn't really matter what shape it is. There's no drag. Where a triangle craft
Exactly. Yeah.
really a bad form. So. Also, I'll mention that I am a MADAR operator. So a MADAR is a small box that plugs in at your house, and it passively monitors things like EMS, compass readings, not EMS, EMF, electromagnetic fields, compass readings, things of that nature. And my MADAR unit was 1 mile away from this sighting, and it actually did record a compass swing of 186 degrees at the time of the sighting. So that is kind of corroborating evidence that supports that there was something there. All right, moving on. This is in February of 22. This is the year that I moved to Arizona. Me and my friend Stefan were moving some of my things in a U-Haul truck from Kentucky to Arizona, and we stopped at New Mexico. And we had done some activities in New Mexico. And the next morning, this face kind of showed up in the window of our hotel room.
Okay, this is weird. So, what are you thinking this face was? I mean, this is weird. What's going on?
Well, so there's a woman, Susan Walker, who lives in Albuquerque, New Mexico, who paints pictures of what she says are the Ponti, which are entities that reside within the Sandia Mountains in Albuquerque, New Mexico. In the previous evening, I had done a channeling where I connected to one of my guides, whose name is Fu, F-U, this is the way it's spelled. And Fu identified himself as a Ponti.
Okay.
So the way I interpret this is a picture of one of my guides, Fu, presenting himself imprinted on the glass.
That's interesting. You should say that because a couple of weeks ago, back in early March, we had Kevin Estrella, who has his own show called Pyramids on Mars, and he talked about his ongoing contacts with the Ponti, and he's a very good friend of Sue Walker's, and I think he visited her as well in the Sandia Mountains, and he talks about the Ponti, and he says that he has contact with them all the time. So I'm finding it's interesting that you're sort of like, it just adds more confirmation that a lot of this stuff is really happening and that the
Yep.
Ponti are in contact with a lot of different people. So that's pretty cool. So if anybody out there wants to know a bit more about the Ponti, look up some of our recent presentations with Kevin Estrella. He talks about the Ponti, his contact with them, and a little bit more background and history into the Ponti because they also want to increase contact with humans. And on his site, he leads to another site. I think it's Sandia Wisdom, if I'm not mistaken. And they talk about
Yes.
also a protocol about how you can go about contacting different groups, especially the Ponti. So sorry, I digress.
And Sue Walker's story is fascinating because she had no artistic ability whatsoever, but the Ponti taught her how to paint, and she paints these most amazing pictures. And she actually sells some of her artwork on that Sandia Wisdom website. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
It's
All
very
right. So
beautiful.
moving
Yeah.
on from here, this is in Louisville, Kentucky. This is May 2022. I was on a paranormal ghost investigation with a team in Louisville. I snapped one photo on the entire 4 hours that I was at this location, and this is the one photo that showed up, or this is the entity that showed up in this one photo. For me, what I see here is a small entity wearing a striped sweater, some coveralls or overalls, and then you can't really make out the face. The face is rather distorted. But yeah, this was a storage area for a second story roller rink, and what was behind the thing that's here to the left of this is a curtain, and then this is just all storage shelves and things. But this full color spirit or entity, I'm not sure, showed up in this one photo that I snapped. So
Okay, this is pretty interesting. And you feel, and this was a ghost, or what are you thinking this was exactly?
so I think that was likely a ghost. I prefer the spirit, but
Okay.
and the team that was doing the investigation, they were able to track down a maintenance person for this building from back. He'd been the maintenance person there for like 50 years before he retired, and they showed him this picture, and he quickly identified this individual as Bobby, who was a 6-year-old boy who fell from the roller rink and then later died on route to the hospital.
Okay, that's really sad.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I do a show occasionally with some friends called Astral Stew, um, and one of the topics we talked about some time ago is um, if a place markets itself as haunted, but individuals who have the means go in to that place and release those spirits from that place. Are they liable then for that place no longer being haunted? um, Kind of a
I know.
spiritual
It's
ethical question. Yeah,
imagine, I mean, you're being sued for what exactly? You know?
yeah, really. So next up on the list, and this is why I include these because I think conscious contact comes in many different forms. So this was September 2022. I'd been in Arizona for about 3 months at this, 2 months at this stage. Before I left Kentucky, I received a letter from an individual that I was corresponding with who claimed to have died and said that his courier would, sent the letter to me. In that letter, it said that he would appear to me as an elephant. And so I was walking to the mailbox, and on the way back, I saw to my left what clearly to me it looks like an elephant. Everybody I show it to, they say Babar from the
Yeah, I
old
see
cartoon.
Babar with the big ears and the trunk. Yeah,
Yeah.
Babar.
And then to my right, just over my house, was this cloud that very clearly to me is a butterfly, maybe signifying some sort of a metamorphosis that was either occurring or about to occur.
It's beautiful.
All right, moving on. So this is October of 22. We've got a little video here I'm going to try to play. Uh, there are there's no AC running. There's not a fan in any room that is running. But there are these. I don't know if you can see them well or not, but there are these orbs that are just flying through
Mm-hmm.
my house.
Yeah,
Um,
saw that.
they're
Yeah.
not dust particles. They're not just drifting by. They have a destination.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny that I'm showing this video right now because I'm now getting orbs flying through the light that's above my computer screen.
Oh, there you go. There you
So,
go. Well, I honestly believe that these are definitely spirits. And you know what's funny? Sometimes there's people that I follow on Instagram, and they sometimes do these little short little videos, and these two guys, and I can see they're in their basement. They do their videos in their basement, and they're just sort of, jumping around having a good time. And I see these orbs flying around, and I'm saying, that's not dust. That's like literally orbs moving, like you said, with intention. And I think this happens a lot more often than people really realize. I think that, they're definitely, you're surrounded by spirits, or past loved
yeah.
ones, or maybe the spirits that are in that house. I don't know. Do you feel that these might be orbs that are like our family, or loved
It's
ones?
possible. I also since discovered that I am less than a mile from a ley line.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
So it's very possible that these
Yeah.
are just passersby
Yeah. Yeah.
that, are passing through my home.
Okay. Okay.
So I won't this is a kind of a long video, but you can just get the gist of what it
Okay.
was. All right, this is a really cool one. So this is July 2023. I was not looking for entities. I was taking pictures with a thermal camera that I have that attaches to my phone in all the rooms in my house to try to figure out, what I can do to try to reduce how much my air conditioning has to run in the summertime here in Arizona. Um, but I snapped this photo here that's in the upper left. I snapped this. This is in my daughter's room. And I immediately saw this anomaly standing, in front of the window. This is a window. You can see here a control photo was taken on the very next day at the exact same time under the same conditions, just to show that there's nothing standing here now. This is kind of like a half window with some blinds over it, and then a half circle window above that, again with some light, some blinds over it. And so this entity is cold, much colder than the room. In fact, you can see that they're pulling, kind of heat from around them as well. And they're just kind of standing there. You can see what I kind of look at as like a chest cavity, shoulders, a little bit of a neck,
And some
and then
hair.
the head.
Can
So,
I just say, Josh, I really, like I said, I can sometimes get impressions, and you definitely have a connection. You have a door to the afterlife. You can like that usual meme, like I see dead people. Like I
yeah,
think that there's something going on that you're able to attract and to see that. You know.
yeah.
I think it's
Thank
very
you.
strong with you. And if you're seeing it in your daughter's room, maybe you're also passing that kind of ability as well to your daughter. I don't know.
Well, this is, I think, one of my daughter's guides. Her name is Rose.
Okay.
She is an incarnation of my daughter in the future. But again, time is not linear.
Exactly.
So she comes and visits my daughter in the now.
Okay.
So I really feel like this is likely Rose
Okay.
that is being caught here on the
Mm-hmm.
thermal. All right. Shane, I'm going to let you explain what we're seeing here because this is your video. I mean, I captured it, but you like, this is your claim to fame.
That's right. Yeah, this one's very cool. So this was Josh, myself, and Stefan. We were on my ranch, 2:30 a.m. No animals, no people, anything around. It's a thermal image. This here is like a tree. This is the horizon and hills. This right here is me, and you can see my foot, my shin, my lap, my face right here. I'm sitting in a zero gravity chair. These are the legs of a little table right here. And that's like our little ghost machine right there, our voice box. This is Josh's shin, his lap, his shoulder, his head. Uh, we had 3 cameras between the 3 of us. We had both optical and thermal. This wedge looking red mark right here is Stefan, and he's leaned all the way back, and he has his hands behind his head and his elbows sticking up like this, and he's reclined all the way back. And we are in that position. And as Josh advances this video, I want you to look right in this area right here as the moments go by. And it's going to happen twice. So just keep watching it to the very end. You can see Stefan moving a little bit, my foot moving. Whoa.
I'm going to go ahead and play it again.
Yeah, watch right here. It happens 2 times. Once. Maybe you didn't. Oh, there it is. Second
There it
time.
was. Yep.
There it was. So again, no doubt that looks like a hand
Yeah.
reaching out, touching the elbow of Josh, who's back, or I mean, Stefan, who's like
Stefan.
this, and it's touching his elbow.
That
Boom.
is
And
wow.
and right prior to that, we had a very extensive conversation. Um, for example, when we started out, we said, "Hey, is there anybody here that would like to speak with us?" And through the voice box, plain as day, a female voice says, just like this, "I do." And so we began to have a conversation, and we had direct questions and answers. For example, one of the things we were doing is we were talking about dead loved ones and how they had passed away. Josh had commented, Stefan had commented, and then it was my turn to comment. And what I was going to say was, Mike, my brother-in-law, died in this way. But what I said was Mike, and before I could say anything else, the voice box said, "Your brother-in-law."
Oh
Well,
boy.
just blew our minds, right? So we had a lot of paranormal activity that night, a lot of discussion and conversation, and there were many other comments, both Josh and Stefan, um, and we were getting direct responses. So it wasn't like random radio noise or anything. It was so specific. It was undeniable, and so frankly, this video made me a 100% believer in paranormal because I personally had this experience. There were 3 witnesses, there were 6 cameras, and audio recording of what we had captured. I mean, this is, in my mind, you can't get any more well proven than that. 3 witnesses, video, optical, and thermal, and I mean, it was just fantastic.
Wow, this is really something. And I know that we are sort of venturing off into different territory here, but I'm wondering, getting back to the whole concept of C-SETI and how you can connect with different beings. Is this the sort of thing that's happening all the time in terms of, let's say, like, are different beings or different alien beings that are passing in and out of our reality and connecting with people? Like, we know we're definitely from the loved ones aspect, but is this something that could definitely be applied to, let's say, different beings that, because not all beings are the third dimension. There are different beings that are different dimensions that have different
Yep.
levels of reality and different levels of frequency. Is this something that would
Yes.
be, yeah? Did you want to sort of
Yeah.
expand on that?
No, yeah, I definitely think so, and
Yeah.
that's why I included all these different things that some people might consider these things paranormal, but um, to me, each one of these slides or references is a specific point in which the overarching phenomenon decided to interact with us, right?
Okay.
Um, Whether it be perceived, like we as humans put the label of ghost, paranormal, supernatural, alien, like we categorize these things into different buckets because that's human nature. That's what we do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But in all actuality, there is in each one of the moments that we got together, from my first sighting in May all the way up to this one and some others that are to come, each time we set the intention of making contact with something. We kept our energy high. We, sometimes conducted a meditation. Sometimes it was just a quick grounding. Sometimes it was a creation of a circle in magical terms, but always with the intention of making contact.
Okay.
How we as humans classify these things, I think, is a moot point.
Okay.
The point is that something is attempting to make contact. We classify them and then say, I'm like, quote unquote, I'm not interested in the paranormal. I'm only interested in UFOs. Then you're cutting yourself off to a real level of contact that may significantly transform your life.
Okay. Yeah, that's definitely food for thought, because I think that as humans, like you're saying, we do have a tendency to put everything in a silo, in a box, and
Mhm.
that sort of that cuts us off. But sort of to go against the grain here, but if you were to be doing this with C-SETI, do you have, like, for example, I'm not sure if we went over it before, but is there a particular meditation, or it can mean maybe not a chant, but like can mean a certain kind of, because I know you talk about frequencies, but
Yeah.
are there certain things that you can also say, or like, let's say for example, someone is saying, okay, how do I do this in particular if I do want to, connect with, let's say, I mean, connect with any whatever's out there, but if you do want at one point want to just connect with, let's say, Bashar and his people, or different, or the Arcturians, or the, you know, the Quequelians, or if you want to work, connect with, like, different people from the Sirius star system. Do you have to do something in particular? Because you could, I assume you can also sort of have, like, you're going with one group, but then you end up having other people sort of coming in at the same time. How
Yeah,
does that work exactly?
I would say that again, this is kind of a generalized thing about humans, is that we oftentimes crave ceremony, right? We crave ritual. So for some people, they need that ceremonial ritualistic aspect of making contact.
Yeah.
They need to always do the same thing under the same conditions. They always light this candle. They always wear these clothes. They always, whatever the case may be. But for other people, it may just be a matter of setting down, setting your intentions, and then opening yourself up to contact.
Okay. It,
Um,
is that what
there,
is that what Greer does? Like, I mean, because I know we talked about it just a bit briefly, but just want to sort of just circle back again. But I guess we're not really sure what he does. He just sort of, because he seems to be. I showed a photo of him before. He's meditating, and I know that he went to, like, a meditation university, or he studied Eastern philosophy for a long time and meditation, and but apart from the frequencies on the CE5 app, there is no actual ritual, like you're saying. And you're right. And you absolutely pointed that out, right, that humans are looking for specific, recipe instructions on how to sort of bake this cake. But I think what I'm getting from you tonight is, and you and Shane, is that it's really just about setting intentions, about having it in your head. I guess it's all sort of
yeah,
like
it's
consciousness, no?
and it's probably more so in your heart,
Okay.
not your physical heart, but the heart chakra, if
Yeah.
you will. Yeah.
And I would jump in and say too that you can't necessarily control who you're going to talk to, right? You set the boundaries, and then who comes. But if you're looking to contact someone specifically, then I think maybe that's more along the lines of channeling, right? Like if you want to talk to Syrian, then you're gonna, you
Okay.
know, you just can't troll and say, whomever, unless you can channel. Does that feel right
Yeah.
to you, Josh?
Yeah, I would say that also. Well, a cautionary tale, just like the cautionary thing that you said earlier, Crystal, about Ouija boards.
Yeah.
Um, don't just sit down and open yourself to channeling. Make sure that you have a good practice in place before doing so, because
Exactly.
you can invite things to enter you that you probably don't want there.
Exactly.
But I would also say that, um, yeah, channeling, or I think if you were to purposefully set an intention to make contact with a specific species or race or entity, they might honor your wishes. But I tend to think of it like, this is a really old terminology. I hope I don't offend anybody by saying this, but as far as it being old, but the party line, a lot of rural America would have had party lines where your neighbors of 10 neighbors might, you might pick up the phone and somebody else might be talking because it's a single telephone line shared by all of your neighbors. That's the way I think about, CSET, CE5 is you're basically tapping into the party line. You might get to talk to the person you want to talk to, but you might talk to somebody else completely unrelated.
Okay. 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 So, like, I mean, so basically, the intention is there. And I think with, from what I'm understanding, with the CE5 is that the intention is to connect with higher beings, extraterrestrial beings, but you never know what might come in. So when we're doing our exercise tomorrow during our live practice, I guess we can sort of just see what happens. I guess, right? Like, I guess we
Yeah.
sort of just take it as it comes. Yeah.
I've just got, if you can, I've got four more things to show real
Sure.
quick, and I'll try to make them fast.
No problem.
So this was March 2024. This was directly post to CE5. I've got the same kind of thermal camera, just kind of pointing off um, behind us, behind from where we're sitting. And what you're looking for is over here near this tree and then kind of along the ground here. And you'll see it, I think, when you see it. And here we go.
Oh, oh dear.
So it kind of moved a little bit here. You can see it right next to the tree. I'll kind of loop this
And
video
that's a
back.
horse in the foreground, I think, right?
This is a horse, yes.
Okay.
So right here next to this tree, you'll see that it kind of like there's a little movement here.
Mm-hmm.
And then
There it goes.
something comes out from behind the
Yeah,
tree
runs
and
up behind the
scampers
trees.
along the ground.
There you go.
And it's cold. Whatever it is, it's cold.
Mm-hmm.
Because you see the horse here is very hot, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's red. Ground is hot. It's red. The tree.
Mm-hmm.
But what we saw scampering along is very cold.
Mm-hmm. What I find interesting is that the horse is not startled. The horse is just kind of like standing around.
Yep.
So, you know.
May not even sense it.
Yeah.
Right.
And if it were a rabbit, it'd be white hot, right? So
Right.
Exactly.
it's clearly something cold, which is highly unusual.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
So, all right. Moving it. So this is something that Shane and I have taken a great interest in over the last year or so, year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Always to the west, northwest. I've seen them in Tucson. I've seen them in Phoenix. I've got friends that have seen them in Indiana. And so I'm just gonna. This is again another little YouTube video. Make sure the sound is off. And what you should see is lights off in the distance that are moving. These are not satellites. These are well after sunset, like 3 hours, 3.5 hours after sunset. So it's impossible for them to be satellites.
Mm-hmm.
This is filmed with a psionics night vision camera. However, they are very visible with the naked eye as well. And so if you give it just a moment, there'll be a really bright one off to the kind of the bottom right in here.
Okay.
I should clicked off the video.
Okay.
See if I can advance it just a little bit. And this is a long video. I won't play the whole thing,
Yeah,
but you'll
no,
see.
but it seems to be like a stationary kind of like there's orbs.
There's a light in the foreground that's a light mounted on a pole.
Okay.
But you should see the
Yeah, I
lights
see them
kind of
moving around,
down.
but it seems like almost like a square-like craft. I don't know. Maybe I'm just projecting, but there's a triangular craft right now that's kind of right there, and like moving around a triangle craft, like the three
I'm not
lights.
seeing that.
No. Okay.
But again, if you go out, look to the northwest, west area, well after sunset, 3 or so hours after sunset, on a clear sky. No matter where you are, you might see them as well. Let me see if I can find the one that's really.
Oh,
yeah, there we go.
There you go.
Here's some that are really bright.
Yeah.
Sorry about the camera movement here. I was repositioning.
Okay, yeah, that's right in your face. Yeah. Yeah.
And we've had this experience over and over again, multiple times. And I've went out at the same time in the evenings by myself and seen nothing. And then when we have our event, then these things show up. And sometimes they need a lot of coaxing, and we do our CE5 stuff and our meditation, and it takes a while. The last time, I think we were all set up, we were ready to go. We didn't do our meditation yet. Josh says, "Hey, look in the west." And we look up, and they were already there. We didn't even call
so
them,
they already know you're coming.
Yeah.
They know you're coming. So they're like, okay, ahead of time. Wow. Somebody just asked a question here in the chat.
I'm spelling it.
Yeah, can name and so the question for those is like, what's the name of the camera? And,
it's called a Psionics Aurora Pro.
Okay, so I see you've put
Ionyx.
Okay.
Yep.
It's SINYX. Okay, Aurora Pro. Okay, there you go. Thank you so much.
Yep. So
Okay.
again, this is a long video, like 30 minutes long, of all these different lights happening. I won't play through the whole thing, but that's something that's, still actively happening. Like Shane said.
Yeah, but they seem to definitely be very clear on making it clear that this is not some sort of optical illusion or sort of like a trick of the light, because they're
Yep.
moving around and making sort of like, I mean, not full blown geometric shapes, but at one point you saw that like there was like two and then there was another one coming around, and
Yep.
it's like that's not fireflies. You know what I mean?
No.
No.
Well, we wouldn't. Yeah, they would be
No.
far off of the distance. Plus, I don't think I've ever seen fireflies in Arizona.
Yeah, but I mean, but you know what I mean? Like I don't know if they'd be
Yeah.
sort of like making a
Right.
straight line.
Yeah. Yeah. They're not. Yeah. It's not Starlink. It's not.
No.
Again, Shane and I are both investigators, and that's the same thing we bring to every single experience we have, is that same level of investigation.
Yeah.
So,
But you know what though?
um,
Like I keep saying at the beginning, and I've been saying throughout the whole presentation, is that the two of you are very much connected. And so I think that I'm not surprised that you are having these experiences, because the two of you are, there's a lot more going on. And, maybe I'm just projecting, because I do sometimes bring in, I have visions myself, and I think that Shane, you also have stuff coming up for you as well, and it's just a matter of time. And I think working with Josh is going to really bring that through. So
yeah,
I
I
don't
feel
know.
the same way about what's coming for
Yeah,
Shane. So,
definitely. Yeah.
last two. This is the image on the left is a control. It's just to show this is the chair in my backyard. This is like a little, kind of gate area on my back fence and some flowers behind it. And this is a stack of like a pack of firewood you might buy from the grocery store.
Okay.
This is a picture I took. So I stepped out in my backyard and I said, "Can I take your picture?" And then I snapped three pictures. My dog was outside at the time. And I heard kind of in my head telepathically, put your dog inside. So I put in that one picture without my dog in the backyard. Now it's kind of faint to see, but you can see his body through the arm of the chair. You can see his little bit of the rounded head, little black eye right here. There's actually a little foot that sticks up right at the bottom of the chair right here.
Okay.
But there's my little friend that let me take his picture in my backyard sitting in my chair.
Okay. And they're afraid of dogs? Really? Dogs are so cool. I don't know.
I guess because dogs are protective sometimes.
Okay. We love dogs.
I mean, I love dogs, but
I love dogs.
it didn't want my dog out there. And it's also possible because I have motion sensing lights
Okay.
that my dog would have set off the motion lights, would have somehow prevented this picture from being taken.
I have another question here from Susan Johnson, and she's asking, can you tell me the name of the infrared camera you use on the phone? Do you have an
Yes.
infrared? Okay. Do
It
you want
is
to put it in the
called a
chat? Because I think you put it in the chat last time.
Seek Thermal, SEEK.
Okay.
They are made for both Android and iPhone.
Okay. Seek thermal.
Seek Thermal.
Okay.
So one more. I was out at a Skywatch in October of last year, and I was showing someone how I use the dowsing rods to connect and communicate with entities. And then the people that were left said, "Let's take a group photo." And I guess whatever I was talking to decided to show up in our photo.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Make their presence known.
Yep. And there's this person right here has a solid black shirt on. There's nothing on their shirt. So it's just you can kind of see a little arm, shoulder, neck,
You see
a
a
little bit of
face
the
in
head,
there.
eye sockets,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Do
So
you feel that this is more entity as opposed to more than
Yeah, this is
Extraterrestrial?
entity.
This is entity, I think. Yeah, that's what I'm picking up. It's entity. Um, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
So that's my evidence that I've captured thus far. There's more stuff, but this is, I mean, these are my really good things that I've caught. But one thing I'll kind of say again is you got to be open to seeing that conscious contact comes in a multitude of different ways, shapes, and forms. And if you're only looking for lights or orbs in the sky, you're missing so much.
And can I ask you a question? And this is sort of like a fast flash type of question, and maybe you may have an answer, maybe you don't, because when you're talking about different groups and different types of entities, have you ever seen fairies or any kind of like
Yes.
little, because that's sort of a thing coming up right now, and people are also talking about dragon energy and all that. I just want to sort of get your opinion on that.
Yeah, one of the first when I first got my dog, I was walking it in my backyard. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. She was still kind of learning our routine. Um, and in the grass next to my pool was this bright white burst of light down next to the ground. And I immediately felt like it was a fairy. It was fairy
Oh,
energy. And I actually get fairies in my house quite often. They like to hide things.
okay.
Like will all the time. It's not just a matter of misplacing. It's like I know I put it on the table, but it's not there.
Yeah.
And then we'll just be like, okay, fairies, you can bring it back now. And then like a couple of days later, it'll be found in the exact spot
Yeah.
where we thought it was, but we would look there previously and it wasn't there. So
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I have to say, and I kind of wonder about that myself because I don't have a house. I have an apartment, and I will put something down, and there's not much space to put things. Like if you have a big house, I can understand things getting lost, but I put something down. I will walk around. I'm getting ready for work. I'm walking around, and I was like, okay, it's not there. I guess I put it somewhere else. I walk around. I don't find it. I go back to the stove or whatever, and it's there. And I'm like, well, like what?
Crazy.
What happened? I don't have enough space to lose things, and yet there it goes. Shane, have you had that experience?
No, I haven't. I love the idea of fairies, and I have little gnomes in my garden and stuff. I'm very enthralled with it and fascinated with it. But no, I've not had that experience. Of course, I've lost things, but I'm 65 years old, so maybe that's it.
You don't look it. That's great. And could you also tell us a little bit more, because I know of people who are watching us right now, if they happen to be in the Arizona area, can they come and check out some of the SETI exercises that you do? As you said, you do it once a month, I think, right, Shane?
Yeah, we do it once a month, over several months, not the entire year. But yeah, I invite the people over, and they come over. And again, it's a little bit out of town. It's a good hour drive for some people. Josh drives an hour to get here. Um, but it's been very, very successful and interesting and fun. And yeah, if you're interested, ping me, and I definitely invite you over.
Okay, that's great. And I did have an interesting comment, just sort of going back to the video that we saw a moment ago with the horse. Do you find, because I know you have a bit of a ranch there, Shane, and you have a lot of animals, do you ever notice the animals reacting to any of this, or they're seeing anything? Because I was kind of surprised that the horse was kind of like, no, the horse didn't really react at all, and yet. Do the
Yeah.
animals ever give you any kind of indication that something's up, or they just sort of taking it in stride? How's that going with the animals?
Yeah, that's something I've been trying to pay attention to and watch, because I am aware of the fact that animals can sense things that we can't. But I'll have to say, I have not seen the horses react to anything um, on those occasions, which is surprising to me. Although, um, you know, I may not be in tune with them when it happens, right? I'm so focused on the experience. For me, I'm not paying attention. And they're very horses are very demonstrative, but sometimes it's very subtle,
Okay.
their communication and stuff. So it is something that I watch for. And there's one horse in particular that I think is really kind of in tune. And, she's the one that I watch. So I will keep watching for that and see if I can notice some kind of behavioral change on their part. But yeah, between dogs and chickens and horses and cats and rabbits and all the stuff we have here, I've not really seen a strong reaction. So I don't know what to think about that yet.
Okay, yeah. It's just interesting because I know that animals do see things a bit differently, like not only in terms of their eyes, their eyesight is a bit different, and dogs see things differently, horses see things differently, but also because they're much more in tune with nature
Mm-hmm.
and much more in tune with the different realities, the subtle realities that we as humans have maybe sort of forgotten, and but we are learning how to come back into that, because like I was saying before at the at the beginning of the show, in the last couple of years, a lot of people have said, like I kind of ignored what was happening in the past, but then it sort of came back to me and I realized that, okay, there's something going on. But in the last couple of years, I've noticed that my abilities or my psychic abilities or my feelings and all that kind of stuff, I feel things now. It's all coming
Mm-hmm.
online. And so we're all being activated and
Mm-hmm.
we are all being turned on, as it were, and I sense, and you could tell me what you think of that, but I think that the so-called junk DNA is not junk, but it's aspects of our ability to connect with these different subtle realms. And whereas before we were looking at it from a maybe a literary lens, and when I say that, I mean about fairies and gnomes and all that kind of stuff. I think these are these things that we just forgotten, but are now we're starting to make the connection. It's no longer literary about fairies and gnomes, but these are actual levels of reality that we are
Yeah.
beginning to. I don't know how you feel about that, but you know, I
Yeah.
think
Yeah,
that's
that's awesome. And
yeah,
it's energetic, right?
yeah.
Even animals, they pick up on the energy and stuff. And so I think that's, we're getting more in tune with that to recognize energetic changes and that there's meaning behind it.
Okay, perfect. That's
Mhm.
great. Well, you know what? Did you guys have any more pictures or anything stuff you wanted to show us? I think we have another 5 minutes. We can. I know, Josh. Did you have something you wanted to sort of like close off with or show us?
I don't have anything else to show. I just wanted to comment on the piece around, opening up and things. If you're familiar with Dolores Cannon's The Third Wave,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
think many of us are probably of the
The
third
third
wave.
wave. Yeah.
And then, so we're opening up right now to get ready for, ascension or whatever we want to think about it. That's probably coming soon. And then the other piece I would just kind of close off with is that, just be open to contact in any way, shape, or form. Um, Sometimes when the name of my podcast is The Shadow Signal, and we named it that because there's like a signal, and sometimes you have to be tuned into it. But when you are tuned into it, you see and hear things that you don't often, that you easily dismiss when you're not tuned in, ready to receive.
Okay. And in your background there, Josh, you have Mystic Journeys. You want to just tell us a little bit more about Mystic Journeys?
Sure. It's my company, and it's what I do for helping people to kind of navigate the complexities of life. I'm not a
Okay.
counselor. I consider it like a life coach type situation, but I do use my intuition, tarot, dowsing rods, channeling, things like that, to pull in to help people kind of navigate if they've had an experience they don't understand, or I helped a person establish a business in Arizona so that she could sell her art. So
Okay.
sometimes the most, kind of mundane aspects of life can be overwhelming. And it's just one of the ways that I feel like I can be of service to people and give back.
Okay, that's great. That's perfect. And I'm really looking forward to our meeting tomorrow. Thursday, April 23rd, we're going to be speaking much more one-on-one with our members. So guys, if you are watching us tonight and you want to take part, just send me a DM in the on YouTube. Just send me a personal email, and I'll make sure that your name is on and you can join us. In the meantime, I just want to say thank you so much to everybody for coming in tonight, and I want to just say thank you to Josh and Josh Rutledge. And I wanted to say thank you to Shane Hurd, for joining us tonight. You guys are amazing. And, you're just such a well of information. And I feel that you guys have been together for a much longer time. I think you guys have had some past lives together. So it's very interesting. And I look forward to seeing you again, I know we have Josh coming up again to talk about, we're talking about, I think we're talking about UFOs, right? I think your sound, is the sound cut off?
You're muted, Josh.
I'm sorry, I was muted. Yes, it's called, my presentation is the Convergence Enigma, and it's basically looking at how all these different aspects of the phenomena relate to each other, and how there are actual documented cases where a UFO sighting is also in relation to a poltergeist experience, is also in relation to cryptid sightings. So it's just pulling some of that detail out, and just again to kind of encourage people to think about all of the phenomena together holistically and not individual pieces.
Okay, great. Well, that's perfect. So I just want to say thank you guys for coming on the show tonight. We really appreciate it. It's always so interesting. And thank you, Josh, for all sharing with us. And you have a very, very interesting background. I know we're going to be talking a little bit more with you in the coming months and learning a little bit more about you. And Shane, thank you so much again for joining us tonight. You're great, and I love a lot of the experiences that you had. I didn't realize that your experience was so you have a lot of wow, cojones to sort of stand up to this big monster that's sort of holding you up against the wall. You just said no. I mean, I think most people would have been going the other way, but you stood up, you stood your ground. So, I mean, I find that very, very fascinating. And I'd love to learn more about some of the work that you're doing, Shane. And if you find out more about stuff about animals, I'd love to, because I love animals. Oh my God. But
yeah, I do have a story about a psychic that did a reading on one of our horses. So
oh, really?
maybe we'll talk about that tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I would
Super
love to. Yeah, absolutely. So I'll definitely be talking about that tomorrow. But I just want to say thank you guys for coming in tonight and for speaking with us. This has been an absolutely beautiful presentation. And, it's interesting because we started off with C-SETI, and I feel we sort of met around the world. We really went around the world. And I think what I drew from this presentation this evening is that we really have to open our minds. I know Joshua was saying that we really have to open our minds because there's so much out there, and I think the problem with the way in which humans have been programmed to see is sort of like this very, very narrow channel of vision.
Oh yeah.
And we really need to open up our field of vision. And so we are going through that. Our bodies are changing, but in addition to that, it's also changing from our own perspective, is having to learn how to see differently, in addition to just our physical bodies changing.
Yep.
So, any closing last words, guys, before we see you tomorrow? No? All right.
Just keep your eyes on the skies.
Exactly.
My closing line for my podcast is always, the truth is now. So there you go.
There you go. So the truth is now. So thanks, guys. We'll see you tomorrow. And thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. Tonight was a great gift, and we learned so much. And if you want to contact Shane or Josh, all their information is down below. You can sort of connect with them and learn more about some of the work that they're doing. We're definitely going to be having Shane and Josh coming back on the show because they're just amazing guys, and there's so much that they can teach us. So I just want to say thanks again, guys, for being with us. We absolutely love you. I like the way you present your information, Shane, and I love what you're doing, Josh. A lot of stuff that you're doing is amazing. So thanks, everybody, for joining us tonight. And if you're part of the group, we will see you tomorrow for the one-on-one with Shane and Josh to discuss a little bit more about C-SETI and to learn more about what Shane is working on, and to learn more also about what Josh is doing with Mystic Journeys. So we'll see you soon. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks again so much.
Thank
Yep.
you
Thank
so
you.
much. Have a good evening, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.